The more comfortable you are, the better for me.
Okay. I'm trying to fold my hands so you can see my boobs, my new boobs.
Oh.
Yeah. No. They're not fake. They're just new because of this incredible hormone, which I got on the black market. So, wait. It's not the one I got officially Go Steve Biko, because Go Steve Biko, this is so sad, and I'm actually taking a risk with my own health. But Go Steve Biko, they told me that Go Steve Biko, they give you Premarin, which is the estrogen that they give you. But Premarin, a lot of petitions against it currently within the trans community. It has properties of horse urine extracts, female horses, which have a lot of estrogen in them. So it does work, but it's got a lot of side effects. I've never been on Premarin. Steve Biko, what they did with me is they said you have a lot of pre-existing conditions. I've got high blood pressure, and what else did they identify? And then they said, so we need to deal with these issues first. So they're not giving me pills to help with my transition, but they did give me something called cypoterone, which is a converter, which converts testosterone to estrogen. But I don't have high volumes of testosterone in my body to begin with. That's why I've never really struggled with my transition. I would always look female even before I was on hormones. I was very blessed in that regard. So and also that's another reason why I don't heal quickly, because I don't have testosterone in to begin with, because testosterone is also a healing.
So you might have to take testosterone?
No, never. I will never take testosterone because then I'll grow a beard. What I'm saying is,
I completely
it's a
understand.
Converter. So it converts your testosterone to estrogen. But for me, it's not doing a lot because I don't have a lot of testosterone to convert in the first place. That's what I'm saying. So to get the results that I wanted, I've spoken to fellow trans women, and they've given me a lot of tips and hints, and do this, rub this, put this in this. And like, people are willing to take risks just so that they can look as they identify. And you can't really judge them. Personally, I used to judge them until I started this process myself, and the pills I was given were not giving me the results, the desired results. And then someone said, try this. It's not recommended by your doctors, but your doctors are aware of it. They haven't given it to me because they said I'm overweight for it for now, and they are afraid at my weight it may cause clots. So they recommended that I lose weight, which I didn't. In fact, during Corona, I went and gained weight, unintentionally, of course. It was stress eating and mild depression here and there. But aside from that, I've embarked on these other pills that were not prescribed by doctors but prescribed by fellow trans sisters who I saw myself. How did you get here? You know? And they said, even learned of a new one last week, that you don't actually drink with water, you crush and like put it over something solid like lebampune or yogurt or whatever you can eat as a solid, and apparently it is amazing things. So we
but
never
now I see you have boobs.
Right?
Wow.
I'm so
actually,
happy.
you're right about you've always looked like I've always known you as a girl.
Thank you. So, I take that as a compliment whenever people say that. I used to say actually, and I remember a journalist corrected me. I'm like, people always used to mistake me for a girl, and he said, "What do you mean mistake you?" I was like, actually, you know, people have always seen me as a girl, even before I identified as a girl. And I've always taken it as a compliment, because for the longest time I've always identified as just a gay male. It took me getting a bursary and moving to the States and having ultimate freedom to do and be who and what I am. Like everything I possibly can be, I was when I was in the States, and all of that came down to living as I already was dressing as a woman, but I'm not identifying as a woman. And then I decided, or rather it wasn't a decision, no, it was a discovery. Yes, I realized that, you know what, you are a woman, you've always been a woman, and you must stop lying to yourself. I think also because the terms didn't exist to me for the longest time. As much as I do research on almost everything that interests me, the terms never existed to me. And even when I came across the term trans, for the longest time I believed you had to have had the surgery, which is actually transsexual, not transgender. I thought you can only identify as trans and I also thought, you know, the lives of trans women is so hard. For me to just claim to be trans, not having gone through the hardships, would almost be demeaning to them. Was like you know, like I'm claiming something, the rewards of a struggle I didn't go through. So that's why also I had problems or struggles identifying as trans. But once I accepted it and became it, well, once I accepted it rather, I automatically became it, although I already was it, you know, but I think I fully embodied it. That's the proper term. I fully embodied it.
We're taking a commercial break. I want Kolila.
Shooting in the hood.
Not to lose trail of thought.
Yes.
One of my favorite books I found on trans people. It's called Trans Voices.
Yes.
Kirata Kotia Iris is a trans woman, and
You said he's a trans woman.
oh yes. See, learning. She's a trans woman, and the majority of trans people develop role models within their own communities. Many look towards the modern world and follow well-known trans people like Janet Mock in America and Lydia Foy in Ireland, who have fought for gender recognition for many years.
Yes.
And when you found the term trans and what it means, and you relate with it, and it's actually you, how do you feel about that?
I completely agree with it. I don't think we find role models. I think we look for role models, but we don't always find them. You have your popular ones, but I mean, they're literally a handful. There are so few of them, and once they do something wrong, it's almost, it's actually quite unfortunate for them, because they themselves are aware that they are such a minority, and they then start living or walking on eggshells because they are so afraid of making a mistake, because they know the pedestal that we put them on. I am personally obsessed with Janet Mock. I love her. I love her work. I love her way of storytelling, and it's so authentic and honest. Every project of hers I have watched, and in every story I have found a character that I can identify with so painfully, like it's so painfully accurate. It's her research, and I mean, she is doing research on American trans lives, because that's her modus. But I, as a South African trans woman, thousands of kilometers away, can relate to a certain character to the T, from the way she sees herself to the sort of men she is attracted to versus the sort of men she attracts herself. I find her to be aspiring. I wish, or I hope rather, to get to a level where I can tell stories that are so authentic, whether they are trans or cis or homo, that are so authentic that they speak a truth that someone out there can see and say, "King na ole, that is me," you know. Growing up, and I mean, these are very recent heroes, role models that you mentioned. For the longest time, I didn't know who Janet Mock was, and even her work wasn't so well publicized before Netflix became this popular and gave people like Janet Mock a platform. They didn't have a channel that would have taken them as seriously and catapulted them to the heights that they've reached today, you know. So growing up, and I think that's part of the reason why I took so long to identify, because I there was a time when I even thought, you know, maybe I'm a drag queen, because I really do enjoy women's clothes. But then RuPaul came into the scene and taught us that drag is an art. It's not what you are. It's not something you can be. It's something you can do, but it's not what you are, you know. It's a profession.
Yeah, there are women who are actually drag queens.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, there's women. There's straight men who are drag queens, you know. So then I was back to square one with regards to identifying and confusion and the terminology around it. So I think if I had known Janet Mock, the likes of Janet Mock, when I was in grade 2, I would have been a lot further in my transitioning. I would have identified and known a lot sooner in my life that this is what and who I am. I would have had something to point at and say, wait a minute, this is, you know, what I am. I remember one of my colleagues who identifies as gay grew up in a very religious homestead, and it was, I think, the Felicia Mabuza show which broke the mold, where she had an episode about the LGBTI community, and that was a light bulb moment for him. And he always says to people, Felicia Mabuza didn't make me gay, TV didn't make me gay, it just affirmed me. I had no affirming anything on television until 2 years ago, really, you know. So
Speaking of that, actually, sorry, let's make it a discussion. This one talks too much.
I do. I do.
But the thing is, I can listen to you all day because I'm learning as I go as well, and it's interesting to find out what you've learned about yourself as well. But you say until 2 years ago you found something that could affirm you. Do you think we're going, because you have a master's degree in media studies, do you think South Africa is on the right path of a place where we will be documenting LGBTQ lives meaningfully and not going to an interview on mainstream TV, and people will all ask you, how do your parents feel about this? How did you come out? You know?
Do you still have the penis?
Yes.
The most popular one. Did you cut it off? I think there's still a lot of work to be done. I think we are on the right path, but I think we are moving at a glacial pace. It is very slow. The direction has been identified, and the work that needs to be done has been identified, but it's not being done. We've identified that we need to have a greater number of representation, and not just in mainstream media, but in all seats of power, including parliament and government, and in policy making rooms all around. In every field, we need representation, and we still don't have that, and that is why you still have people sort of trying to represent us or trying to accommodate us, and with good intentions, but still going about it so wrong, because there isn't enough knowledge, there isn't enough information, and there isn't enough of us there to say and to correct and to teach and to help them unlearn, because there's also been a lot of incorrect information around transgender lives and transgender bodies. We've been so heavily sexualized. I mean, it is the most Googled or the most researched category in porn. But in porn, they don't call us transgender, they call us she-males. And it's terms like that carry on the misinformation, and I've even learned to not be offended, because I'll sort of explain to someone what and who I am, and they'll say, oh, she-male. I'm like, oh. And they say it with such boldness because they don't think it's a derogatory term, they don't think it's offensive, it's a term, and because they've seen it so frequently, it can't be offensive, to them. I mean, something so wrong can't be used so frequently. And so there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of sexualizing of transgender bodies and transgender images, and I really do think we are so far from getting it done. One activist said transgender rights today are where gay rights were 16 years ago. Yeah. So we still have a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of work to be done by us the trans community ourselves, but there's also a lot of work to be done within the cis community to catch up and to catch on and to get on the bus.
Commercial break.
It is not a lifestyle choice. I do understand though why people think it is, because it has become popular in the last 5 years, especially even in mainstream media and
because people ask for Namaleka.
Yeah, exactly. So it does. I mean, even my mom has even said herself, fashion, which is exactly that. It's a lifestyle choice. It's like you guys were living a certain way, and now you have just found out about this thing, and it's not even that. I think this is who we've always been. We are just more free to express ourselves now. I think we've built these prisons around ourselves, and it's not just us building prisons around ourselves. It's society and its norms and its expectations that continue to add bricks onto these prisons that we've built around ourselves. And because of all of those factors, we grow up knowing that it is, or thinking that it is wrong to be this thing that I am. And being trans is perhaps, I think, the most especially from a religious context, it's the one that they find the most offensive. I have had many Christian friends or acquaintances say, I can understand a gay man is just a man that loves another man, but he has no desire to change his God-given anatomy. So they take it as an affront. It's so personal to them to say,
I hope you saw it all last.
They feel like you guys are playing God. I've had people say to me, why isn't it enough for you to just wear dresses and identify as a woman and do your nails and be as feminine as possible? And I do that, and not in an attempt to be feminine, but because that's who I am. It's what I'm naturally drawn to. The fact that it enhances my femininity is just a bonus. But I will wear a bra even over a hoodie where nothing is showing and nothing is sexy, but that's because it's who I want and it's what I feel most comfortable in. So it is definitely not a lifestyle choice. It is such a difficult life, not a lifestyle to begin with. Why would anybody choose it? Just like Declan said in the book, why would anybody choose this life where you are constantly being challenged and questioned from every angle. As a trans woman, men are questioning how much of a woman you are. They test you in a relationship, and as a result, trans women end up in toxic relationships because we are trying to model ourselves after cis women who've also made it a habit to stay in toxic and abusive relationships. Then we have women challenging how much of a woman we are as well, because women also act like they're the guardians of womanhood, that it's almost as if they feel like we are contesting or competing
or even contaminating
even in fact contaminating. They feel like we are contaminating the name of woman, and we are, it's almost an how dare you, you know, because you do not go through the same challenges as us. For one, you do not have periods, which are just from a biological standpoint a cis women challenge that all cis women go through, all of them, every color, creed, race, and class. You know, so there are certain things that I mean, even people who we grew up loving, like Chimamanda Adichie Ngozi, has gone to make transphobic statements like saying trans women must still remember the privileges they enjoyed while they were still men. And I'm like, we were never men. We may have lived as men, but we were miserable, we were depressed, we were cutting our wrists every night. You know, J.K. Rowling has gone on to also make similar derogatory and transphobic statements, saying that
in the latest book, I hear,
we cannot give they can identify as women to a certain point and no further, you know, because it's so there's this, and this also is so mentally challenging to us because we are constantly seeking validation from
refuge
them. And now and we thought women would be the people who would understand because we're on the same team, or so we thought, but no, we're in the B team and we're not even in the same league because they feel that we are not as women as them, and they deny us the validation, and this is part of the reason why so many trans women go to extremes also in terms of their transitioning. This is why the black market exists, and it'll continue to exist and thrive, even because trans women will keep going further and further to push the envelope and become more of a woman, so that their cis sisters can then say, but you know, those sort of words. I mean, and it's quite sad because we should be at a point where we knowing self-identifying is enough, you know, but unfortunately for many of us it isn't. For many of us, we still want to hear that word from a family member, a parent, a sibling, a boyfriend. You know, I used to have people question me all the time, people that I was dating, to say, I'm so attracted to you, what does that make me? You know, am I still straight? And I would say yes, because when you hit on me thinking that I'm a woman, which I am. You were attracted to a woman. There wasn't a masculine quality in me that attracted you to me, but it's still so difficult, and that's why it's also still so difficult to find love, because the community,
you know, you keep on answering questions I haven't asked yet.
The community, society as a whole shames, but they don't just shame us for being who we are, they shame the men who are attracted to us. They say to them, so obai Joe, because how can you claim to be straight if you are still if you are attracted to a person who is penis bodied? That's the term I've coined for myself, actually, because people will say if you're dating a person who's still a man, I'm like, no, I'm not a man. I may be penis bodied, but I'm still very much a woman. You know, we'll pause until people pause.
Yes. Let me also.
So where do we start? Do we go back to dating?
No, because I wanted to ask you the negotiation you have to do in relationships when you enter relationships. Because I have a trans friend, and constantly talking about her being on Grindr and trying to find
babes.
And also, trans people are, and you'll find on Grindr people saying,
I'm only here for trans.
Yes.
I love it. They're my favorite people. They are the ones. They are the reason why we still go to Grindr. I mean, there's Transtar, which hasn't caught on here in South Africa. It's very popular in the UK, and I've had many friends who say, "Wait, you just need to move to Europe or in the first 10 days. We promise you." Negotiating relationships is such a challenge. Navigating through the challenges of dating. I mean, dating is difficult across the board. I listen to my cis-het female friends, and their stories are constant affirmations of the hashtag men are trash because of the stories and the things that men subject them to. And it's made me feel better actually, because I used to think men treat me badly because I'm trans. I've said this to men, Jorge, if I could give you children, I think you would have taken me seriously, or you would have taken my request more seriously, or given me a high level of respect, and they'd feel bad and say, no, it was never about that, but that's how I felt at the time. The sad thing is, it's so easy to get sex as a trans woman. It is the easiest thing in the world. I can call 12 people right now who have probably rejected in the last month or so for sex, and they will come running.
And then they all know that you're a trans woman?
Yes. These are people I've met on platforms like Grindr.
Okay.
So my profile and my pictures and my appearance, everything about me there says trans. And they came into my inbox knowing and wanting. The problem is a relationship. Getting into a relationship with a man who takes you seriously and wants to build something beautiful and solid and serious that can grow.
Monogamy is difficult on its own. I don't think it's about you being trans.
That's what I mean. I used to think that's the reason. That was the reason, but until I started listening to a lot of my sisters who also have horrific stories to share about the things that men have subjected them to, and then I think, okay, maybe they're just trash across the board. You know, they're not just bad to me. They're just bad people. They were badly raised and they emotionally stunted. Their growth stopped at 14 emotionally. So we're dealing with children in man bodies, really. That's what I said to a friend of mine recently when she told me about the antics that her so-called serious partner had been pulling recently. And so I do think relationships are difficult generally, but they're more difficult for us because we are pushed into corners, we're pushed into the dark. You know, when a person who is attracted to me wants to see me, they can't do it during the day, they can't do it when he's with his boys and I'm with my girls. Even in a club, I've had people wait for me at my car. I don't even know how they knew that was my car, but they'd rather wait for me and they'd rather find me in an isolated moment where their boys will not see them and my girls will not see them, because either of those people seeing or witnessing his attraction to me is detrimental to his social standard and standing. And it might not be, I mean, he might not be a high-ranking member of society, but whatever standing he holds means a lot to him, and he has to protect that. And I, as a trans woman, have to understand that if I want this relationship to work.
Yeah, you're a great interview because I don't get to ask a lot of questions.
Thank you.
And you
I just love telling my story though, because and I don't mind sharing it. People always asking me questions, even in social settings. I could be at a baby shower, or we could be having drinks with friends, and one of them will have bought another person who doesn't know me very well, and I don't know, someone will whisper to them, or I will even mention it myself during conversation, and questions will come up, and I'm always willing to talk about it as long as a person that I'm talking to is willing to learn. As long as you're not asking me because you're attacking me, and I'm not answering you to defend myself. I don't owe you an explanation, but I definitely don't mind advocating and teaching, because I believe that when we know better, we do better. And like I said, there's so much incorrect information, and who's going to correct them? It's us, even though it's quite unfair, because it's not us who put out that incorrect information, but that incorrect information is about us. It's about our bodies, our lives. So it's up to us to correct them and to fix the damage that was done by many bigger conglomerates.
The mainstream, I say.
The mainstream, yeah.
And it's interesting because I was helping someone with an interview yesterday who's doing a master's in gender studies. And she asked me something along the lines of when people are homophobic, or when people ask you questions and stuff like that, and having to explain yourself all the time. And not now knowing about trans issues, and now in my head I was like, I cannot imagine what trans people go through.
Yes.
But the thing that you develop as an LGBTQ community member is you can always sense when something is from a place of transphobia, homophobia,
Absolutely.
or just ignorance.
Absolutely.
So you decide whether you want to entertain it or not based on what you're sensing from that person. I think that's what I've been doing.
Yes, that's true. I think you can pick up the malice. We're so good at picking up malice because we've had so much maliciousness thrown at us for different reasons our entire lives. I mean, whether you're just pouring gas or you know, that you could be doing the most mundane task and someone will pick up that you are of the LGBTI community and hate will be thrown at you, whether it is a comment or a push or a shove or you are denied access into something. We're so used to it. So our radar for malice and hate is on point. And you're right. You can pick up when a person is asking because they are judging you, and this is what they already believe, and they just want to hear if your answer will be good enough, you know, or if they're asking you because they really honestly don't know. And once you tell them the right information, they will go on to spread the right information to say, actually, that's not true. I've spoken to a trans person, and she said ABC, you know, and that's what I hope also happens, that the spreading of information doesn't just end with me and a person having an exchange. That the next time they're with their peers and that sort of incorrect information is being spread, I hope that they also say, no, hang on, that's incorrect, and I learned. I hope it trickles down and it has a domino effect.
Look, I don't want to make this interview long because I learned my lesson with the one I did with Jaylee and Mahlatjie. It's quite long and data is very expensive.
For people to watch. Correct.
So we're going to cut it short, but I'm sure this is not the last time you and I interact.
No, please, it cannot be. It absolutely cannot be. That I myself am still learning. I think the last time you interviewed me, there are things that I've said in this interview that I didn't say in the last interview. You know, I wasn't on hormones when you last spoke to me. I didn't know who the Khafisa saw, guys.
What do you mean?
I feel like Kotabadi Pambiri. Wahafa.
Give side effects.
Oh my gosh, I was never ready. I've spoken to a lady before I started hormones. I spoke to a lady, a fellow trans sister by the name of Nziki Jones, and she had stopped her treatment. And I said, Nziki, why? You know, I was confused because I was eager. I had this burning desire to start putting these things into my body. And she said, I was going crazy. I really was. And then I thought, okay, to each her own. And then I started.
And we're going to end it on that note. Thank you very much.
Perfection. I'm so happy.
It was good.
I'm happy with it too. I feel so good.
It was really good.